Okay, let's talk about evaluations. So in order to get to start a new evaluation, you will just go down to evaluation, click services, and up in the top right, you will see new evaluation. You are going to select the student for which you want to evaluate, and obviously they have to be in the student. You have to have added them in order for them to show up here. So if you haven't done that, make sure you go ahead and add them in the student section. So what you will do is you'll click the student that you want to choose. And now any of the templates will show up that are appropriate for that age child. So you will be able to choose any of these that you want to. Typically what we do is use the early childhood one for most students who are preschool age, but if you have a child that's maybe functioning more on a 0 to 3 age, you can certainly select that one. Or if you may want to check out some of these other ones. So also, if it's the first time you've created an evaluation, you may want to go ahead and select the demo use one and then select a child that is one of your test students. So that way you can play around with it and make sure you're comfortable with it. So today we're going to just select the early childhood one. And I'm not going to go through this completely, but there is going to be a complete an evaluation with me module on the second, like the onboarding one or a separate class. So make sure that you look at that for step by step. But anyway, when you go on here, the basics will be that it will guide you based on the child's age and tell you what you need to do next based on a basal and a ceiling auto logic. So obviously it's going to start at the top and it's going to go down. You may skip any things that you don't need. However, just remember the more things you skip, those will not be part of your evaluation report. And so, you just want to make sure that you complete a nice overview for the student. Whenever you're getting ready to do an evaluation, make sure you always click the focus button here because that'll make it so you don't have to scroll down to find that next. It'll make it so it sort of makes the whole area sticky, so to say, so that way you can not have to scroll so much. Also, for younger kids, it's completely fun, but you can do, if you want to, like for instance, for the visual part right now, you see that it says hide scores. So right now the scores are showing basically, which one is the correct answer. If you have a reading child, you will need to make sure that the scores are not showing. Anyhow, so I believe it started here, you will go ahead and answer those questions. You need to ask the student to use the prompts just as it gives you here. There's instructions on almost all of them, and it'll tell you what the range is for each one, what you're measuring. Make sure you read this when this is appropriate to check this box. And then if you ever have any additional notes or clinical observations on any of these specific questions, you can certainly add them in here. That makes your evaluation so much better. Another thing to note about here is that you do not have to write it in complete sentences. It will pick it up correctly and add it as a full sentence as long as it knows kind of what you're talking about. This little thing here, if you're ever wondering, it's sort of its brain. It's telling you what the current testing strategy is. So if you're ever wondering why it's giving you more questions or less, you can look there. Also, as you answer more questions, start seeing that some of these little icons change. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will be able to see this little icon key and it'll tell you exactly what they mean. So that way that might be helpful to you. Anyhow, so for the evaluations, you will just click through. Like I said, you can go to the questions that you want to answer or the sections that you want to answer. Some of these do have worksheets that go with them. Some of them do have more information. So on this one, it may have help resources. Then you can also make any of these bigger. That's a little blurry because my screen is large, but hopefully it's good for yours. But that'll help you understand a little bit more about the actual skill that's being asked for. If a question has this little bubble with a number on it, that means that it is related to a milestone, a well-established milestone. So that way it can kind of And that's what the basal and the ceiling does, is it helps to make sure that it's not asking more questions than needed in order to get the information. So it's to make it shorter when possible. Let's see. So for right now, that's the part of evaluations we went to see. Once you've completed the evaluation, it'll ask you, do you want to save it and exit? Which means you might want to come back and review it. You're not going to finalize it, or it will say, do you want to complete it? And once you complete an evaluation, you cannot go back and change any answers. Once you finish an evaluation, you will be able to also choose if you want to create an AI medical report or an AI educational report. So obviously the educational report is more for people who are working in a school system, and it's more of an IEP. And again, the AI is not passing, it's not getting any of the protected health information. It's just getting our scores that are on the back end and hoping to be your like little secretary assistant to make all of the narrative sound appropriate. Anyway, so when you get back into your services button, you will see all of this. And so this means that you can go back into this evaluation because it hasn't been completed. You can exit by doing this at any point. You can see things that have been completed or in progress. So this says draft because I didn't actually answer any questions. On this one, if it says completed, let me go down to a different one that's completed. For the school age one, if you click this little eyeball, it'll actually show you all of the questions that were answered and what your responses were. If you just click them, it's view only, so you cannot change anything, but you can view, like I said. If you go into the middle one, it is just kind of a report, a different sort of report. This is not one you would send to your parents, but it'll basically kind of give you some insight about the scoring. And then if you go back and then you go to the last one, this is the little AI button, that's the report. It will tell you when it was generated, what kind of report it was, the evaluation, and then you can click this little button. You can make any changes you want to here, but this is the actual full report. When you upload these in any way, it's, instead of doing the copy paste, it is a whole lot better if you go ahead and export the doc, because it's going to save the formatting. If you just copy and paste, you're going to get crazy big spaces between everything, which is not very visually attractive. So make sure that you make any changes here, then you can save it. Or you can go ahead and just export as a doc, and then you can make your changes as you want to.